Do you remember the day last year when Joe Biden reversed Title IX with a wave of his magic administrative wand, where he took a statute that was passed by Congress to protect girls and women in sport, and with the magic wand, completely gutted it? Just saying, all it is an administrative rule enforcing Title IX. That's all we did. It's just like, this is just guidance on how we're going to enforce it. But really what he did was completely gut the entire statute by saying Title IX no longer just applied to girls and women. It applies to boys and men pretending to be girls and women. I mean, it completely stood the rule on its head, because one of the main fights, the main fight that's happening under Title IX right now for the protection of girls and women is to keep men pretending to be us out of our sports and our sports facilities and our private spaces in school. And this affects K through college. Well, Joe Biden thought he knew better. Joe Biden, who's having trannies show up on the White House lawn and show off their fake tits, thought he would do better on this than the U.S. Congress, which had duly passed the law and decided, or someone pretending to be the Weekend at Bernie's president, pushed through this rule change, which completely undermined the rule of law and the principles behind it. And it was a before and after moment for me personally, because it was the first time I've ever come out on the air in public and said who I voted for in an election. I had never done that. And frankly, it started a path that got me ultimately speaking for Trump the night before the election. Once I had crossed that line, it wasn't so hard to cross the next line to say, and this is who I'm voting for in the next election and why I think you should vote as I do. And so this Title IX thing is very deep and personal to me and to most women I know, and most dads, not just women, men too, who have daughters in the system and who are worried about this issue. So just as a flashback, here is the day it came out. We had thrown out our show and decided to just talk about this abomination. And here's what happened. It must be undone. Do not comply. The rules don't take effect until August. Don't comply. Don't use their language. Protect your daughters. Fight. Protect your sons. Speak up. Don't comply. Don't comply. Don't let your child play the pronoun game. Don't you play it. This is going to be taken up. They're not going to get away with this. And indeed, now, that was April. In January of 2025, it has been taken up and the rule has been struck down nationwide. The rule is dead. God bless the judge who did it and the states who brought the lawsuit. State after state after state joined together to say, absolutely not. They want you to believe Trump is lawless. Trump has made a mockery of the justice system. Joe Biden tried to rewrite the definition of women without a single lawmaker weighing in. Never mind that it's God's decision and it's been rendered. He tried to do this behind closed doors and just say it was all about equity and you were a bigot if you disagreed. Well, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, Virginia, West Virginia joined together and said, no, we are filing legal challenges to this absolute nonsense. And one of those lawsuits that they all joined in on led to this decision yesterday, on Thursday. The rule had already been temporarily blocked in 26 states as a result of these more red states joining together. But now it's officially stopped. It's been definitively ruled against thanks to a judge named Danny C. Reeves, Reeves, of the Eastern District of Kentucky, in a 15-page opinion, which just excoriates Miguel Cardona and the Department of Education for trying to do this, saying you may not lawfully expand the definition of Title IX to prohibit discrimination based on gender identity as opposed to sex. which is the governing standard, which means male or female. Female are protected by Title IX. And expanding it to people who identify as female guts the rule. That's what the judge found. The entire point, he wrote, of Title IX is to prevent discrimination based on sex. Throwing gender identity into the mix eviscerates the statute and renders it largely meaningless. Right on. Right on. Reading more here from the New York Times write-up of the decision. Citing the Supreme Court's sweeping decision in Loper Bright Enterprises versus Raimondo last year, which limited the regulatory power of federal agencies. Remember, we talked about this, how the Supreme Court ruled last term. The days of letting these administrative agencies, also known as the deep state, to have this sweeping sort of legislative power that nobody voted that they could have are over. This sort of Chevron deference, as it was known, we're not doing that anymore. These are unelected bureaucrats. They don't get to gut federal legislation because, finger in the air, the times have changed. Do we think men are women now? No, that's not the way it works. So, continuing here, citing the court's sweeping decision, which limited the regulatory power of federal agencies, Judge Reeves wrote that the Biden administration had overstepped when it sought to enforce its new interpretation of Title IX through federal rulemaking. But more significantly, the judge also rejected, listen up, this is important to you, the revised rule on free speech grounds. Okay, so it wasn't just, you don't have the power to legislate, you're a bunch of unelected bureaucrats. That was a part of it. But equally important was the First Amendment piece of the ruling, which affects all of us when it comes to these ridiculous preferred pronouns that are being forced down our throats, not just in the Title IX context, not just you will call him a her and let him play softball against your daughter, but in the work context, in every context. State after state, including New York, including Connecticut, are trying to make it amount to statutorily, either under the civil rights laws or for civil liability purposes, hostile work environment if you don't call the he's a she at their request. They're trying to mandate the preferred pronoun thing into mandatory pronouns in order to be equitable and kind. And they don't care that you're erasing women and girls in doing it. Well, no more. Not according to this judge. And we'll see whether this goes up. Good luck. I hope you do appeal it. I hope in the time Joe Biden has left, they file an appeal of this, because I'd love to see this reinforced by the Supreme Court. It already really was in 303 Creative. It really already was. You remember that case where the woman refused to do the wedding website for the gay couple, and they came out and said, this is free speech. She's allowed to say, I don't stand for this. I don't support this. Okay, they say, this is the Times write-up. More significantly, the judge also rejected the revised rule on free speech grounds, writing that it, quote, offends the First Amendment by potentially requiring educators to use names and pronouns associated with the student's chosen gender identity. Not just the pronouns, but the names, the new fake names that these schools are suddenly, oh, okay, Joe is suddenly Georgina, and we're going to have to go along with that. No. If you're a teacher who says, I don't believe in that, I'm a Christian. My God tells me he doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't make a boy secretly a girl. I'm not doing that. You're protected under this ruling so long as it doesn't get reversed, and it's not going to. Don't worry. Put simply, the First Amendment does not permit the government to chill speech or compel affirmance of a belief with which the speaker disagrees in this manner. Yes, right on, Judge Reeves. Right on. Here's some more. The court goes on to say, the court remains persuaded that the final rule offends the First Amendment for the reasons explained earlier in a prior memorandum. To recap briefly, the final rule's definitions of sex discrimination and sex-based harassment, combined with the let's see, require Title IX recipients, including teachers, to use names and pronouns associated with a student's asserted gender identity. While the department insists that this is not necessarily the case, the new subjective harassment standard that need only limit participation in an educational program or activity quite clearly compels this result. So that's them saying, you can't say that this is not really happening. You're making teachers engage in this fallacy, and they shouldn't be, you can't compel them to do that. Now, look, this is a federal district ruling, federal district court. That's not the Supreme Court. That's 2 tiers down from the Supreme Court. But this decision had such weight in gutting the actual rule that no one's disputing it has nationwide effect, that the Title IX rule is officially done, as Joe Biden tried to revise it. And now what we have to see is whether it gets appealed, whether that ruling gets appealed. And here's the really interesting thing. In 10 days, Donald Trump is going to be the president. Hallelujah. And what are the odds that his DOJ appeals this? I don't think any. I don't think they will appeal it. Even just to get it to the Supreme Court right now, I don't think they do that. This ruling stands, and it will be used by many other plaintiffs and other courts who are trying to challenge mandatory pronouns like this. And that's a plus. That's a benefit. And over the next 4 years or plus, right? Like anybody who tries to file a challenge trying to force these pronouns down our throats or tries to redefine the definition of women and girls does so at great risk. With this Supreme Court, rulings like this, one after the other, getting on the books. And don't forget, we're already waiting for a ruling from this Supreme Court that's related in this lane. So my point is simply that the lawfare, same as the lawfare against Trump, is failing for the left. The ACLU is failing in its attempts to make boys girls legally and to make the rest of us pretend we agree with that. And the Supreme Court, I think, is weeks or months away from doing the same. Thank God. Thank God. Thank God, thank God, thank God. Thank God for these lawyers, these attorneys general who went in there and did what was right. Thank God for the presidents who have appointed rational judges who understand the law and not identity politics as a filter through which they view the law. And thank God President Trump won, because when he gets in there, he is going to undo the Biden changes to Title IX anyway. Let's not forget, there's a lot of problems with that law. He not only completely effed over women and girls, he also effed over young men on college campuses, remember, by completely lowering the standards by which they can be accused and convicted of being sexual assaulters or harassers and thrown off campus. President Trump's going to restore all of those protections, all of them. He's going to restore due process in Title IX, and he's going to actually change the wording of the rule officially back to what it was. But this is just one small area. There's not going to be any more pressure or guidance from the federal government, guaranteed, that it's a hostile work environment if you choose not to say somebody's preferred pronouns. So all that shit is ending. These are, I think in most people's minds, the minor victories of Trump. Like, most importantly, let's get the criminal killers out of our country who crossed the border illegally. That's number one. We're going to be seeing all that on day one. Let's make America great again. Let's restore economic prosperity for all groups across all spectrums, irrespective of race and identity and all that stuff. But this is big too. And there are a bunch of us who've been fighting for these changes. The list is too long. So many great women and men, but I'm just thinking of so many women who have devoted themselves to this issue over the past 10 plus years. And the legal eagles who have been devoting themselves, including Alliance Defending Freedom, which is involved in this, and these attorney generals who have made the difference here. And by the way, those of you who make donations to these groups, the Independent Women's Forum, they've been amazing. ADF, amazing, to try to get the funding for these lawsuits so that we can get these right rulings to protect our daughters. Well, it's happening. For those of us holding our breath for the past several months, watching the politics of this nation, we can finally exhale a bit. Work can finally be done on the major issues this country's facing, one of the most significant being our national debt. The fact is, we're broke, and that debt that we have is a house of cards that cannot be quickly dismantled. So the strategy remains the same. You might want to diversify your savings. This is why I want you to know about Birch Gold. So many things are out of our control, out of our president's control for that matter. So it can be really important to have a safe haven for your savings. Birch Gold Group can help you convert an IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold. And the best news is it does not cost you 1 cent out of pocket. Just text MK to 989898 to get your free info kit. Plus, right now, you will receive a free 1-ounce silver eagle coin for every $5,000 purchased. Protect your savings with Birch Gold. Text MK to 989898 and claim your eligibility for free silver today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.